learning Maseches Eruvin, chapter 3. The name of the chapter is Bakol Me'arvin. We make Eruv with practically everything, except water and salt, as the Mishnah said. Page 34. We'll start with the top of the page. The Mishnah clearly implies that the Eruv must actually be taken to the site of the Shabbos residence. So number 1, this point of the Mishnah relevant to our Gemara, that the Mishnah discusses a case of Yom Tov preceding the Shabbos, is totally insignificant. However, since this is the only Mishnah which expressly states that the Eruv must be taken to the site of the Shabbos resident, Rav Bar Sheva was compelled to cite it, but see Tosfos and Ravid, cited by Ritva, who, although they interpret Rav Bar Sheva's challenge differently, both state that it could be drawn only from a case of Yom Tov preceding the Shabbos. We learned yesterday, at the end of the daf, about this case, that Yom Tov preceding Shabbos. We learned that he has to put it on Friday, after Thursday night. Right, Thursday evening is Erev Yom Tov, and then he has to put it again on Friday afternoon. It says Keitzad Oisem Olicha Barishon. He would take the Eruv on the eve of the first day, Thursday afternoon, to the place he wishes to establish as his Shabbos residence for Yom Tov, Umach, and stay with it until nightfall. And then takes it and go Basheni on the eve of the second day on the afternoon. He should return to the Eruv, to that place and stay with it until nightfall, and then eat it and go. So that's the obviously Yom Tov. There's not the problem of tiltul, of carrying, but there's still seemingly a concept of Tchum Shabbos. Otherwise, why he has to put it on Yom Tov? Let's see. So according to Rabbi Menashe, however, why is it necessary to bring the Eruv to the site of the Shabbos resident? Let us say that since he wishes to bring it there, he may bring it. Even though he did not actually bring it, is regarded as having brought it. Rav Bar Sheva adduces proof from the Mishnah that the existence of a potential to place the Eruv in its proper location is not a legitimate alternative to actually placing it there. Hence, Rabbi Menashe's position in the case of the basket is refuted. The Eruv is invalid unless the basket was actually lowered to within 10 tvachim of the ground before the onset of the Shabbos. The potential to tilt it into the proper position is insufficient. Okay, Amar Rabbi Zera, Gezerah mishum Yom Tov shechal yisachar Shabbos. The Eruv must always be brought to the site of the Shabbos residence by rabbinical decree because of the case of the Yom Tov which occurs after the Shabbos on Sunday. Since carrying on the Shabbos is prohibited, no potential exists to bring the Eruv for Yom Tov on Shabbos afternoon at twilight, unless they have an Eruv. Hence, if ordinarily one were allowed to leave his Eruv at home, in the case of Yom Tov, following the Shabbos, one might rely on the Eruv in his house, and although that Eruv is valid for Shabbos, for Yom Tov is not. The Gemara attempts to refute Rabbi Menashe with a brayso. One intended to establish his residence in Reshus Rabim, in public domain, and he placed his Eruv on a nearby wall. The Eruv was placed below 10 tfachim, from the ground, which is a good spot, as long as you do it less than 10 tfachim. Eruv is a valid eruv because it is accessible. If it was placed above 10 tfachim in a reshus hayochid, in a private domain, ein eruv. His eruv is not a valid eruv because it is not accessible. That was the Mishnah. If he intended to establish his Shabbos residence on top of a tall dav coat or closet which was placed against the wall, when it's above 10 tfachim, his eruv is a valid eruv. Why? Because it's accessible to its owner on top of the closet. If he placed it on the wall below 10 tfachim, his eruv is not a valid eruv. Why? Since transferring it from its place to the wall, which is a reshus harabim, to the top of the closet, a reshus hayochid, is biblically prohibited. The eruv is therefore inaccessible. The Gemara challenges Rabbi Yirmiyah from the last case of the Braita. And why, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, is this eruv inaccessible? Achinami neima. Here too, let us say that ho'il v'yochel in toisu la'avir l'teichasor, since he is capable of bringing it l'teichasor, to within 10 tfachim from the ground, the eruv is potentially accessible. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah defends his position. Here, the Bais were dealing with a closet that was nailed to the wall. Since it is impossible to overturn the closet, the eruv is not even potentially accessible, and therefore invalid. The Gemara offers a second explanation of the Bais. Rava said, even you can even say that the Bais is discussing a closet that is not nailed to the wall. And the eruv is nonetheless invalid because here we are dealing with a tall closet. The imam tilei puta, for if he lowered it a little, the top of the closet would project beyond 4 amis.
How about if you had
from the wall?
How about you have a yeshiva, right? They have lockers, school lockers, right? And so it's open, and you put the eruv in a locker with a combination. So you walk the 2,000 amas into the yeshiva, do the combination, take out your eruv. Is that kosher? Not kosher. I mean, within 10 amas, 10 tefachim.
Seemingly, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting that from this.
Yes, so he says, since he would have to transport the eruv more than 4 amas through the reshus harabim to reach his Shabbos residence, the eruv is not even potentially accessible and is therefore invalid. However, where inclining the closet would render the eruv accessible, meaning it's not nailed, so therefore you can incline the closet, the eruv would be valid in accordance with Rabbi Yirmiyah's ruling in the case of the basket. Eichidami, what is the last case of this brisa? Idei must know if there is a window in the closet facing the spot in the wall where the eruv rests, and a rope which is attached to the eruv, let him bring the eruv up to the top of the closet by means of the window and rope. The Gemara answers the Leise Kavoto Misna. In the Baisa's case, there is no window and rope, and so transferring the eruv from the wall to the top of the closet by ordinary means is prohibited during twilight, since to do so would violate biblical law. Our Mishnah said, if you place the eruv in a pit, even 100 amas deep, it is a valid eruv. What pit? Where was it located? If the pit was situated in a private domain, pshita, obviously it's okay. It extends upward indefinitely until the heavens. And just as Rishus HaYochid rises indefinitely, so too it descends without limits. The pit, no matter how deep, is therefore located in the same private domain that the Shabbos residence occupies. The Gemara considers another description of the Mishnah's case. Shall we say rather that the pit is located in a Shus Rabim, public domain, in Iskaves Lishbois Heicha? If so, where did the Eruv owner intended to establish his Shabbos residence? If he intended to establish the Shabbos residence above the pit in the surrounding Rishus Rabim, hu b'mokim echod v'eruvo b'mokim achiru. The Eruv should not be valid because he is in one area in the Rishus Rabim, and his Eruv is in another area in Rishus HaYochid. Ilamata, if he intended to establish his Shabbos residence below, at the bottom of the pit where the Eruv was placed, it is obvious that the Eruv is valid because he and his Eruv are in one place.
I need the Sprite before the people coming.
What people?
The Rivka before 9 o'clock.
Okay, we'll be done soon. We'll be done soon. The Gemara says, the the case is needed because the pit is located in a Karmelis. And he intended to establish his Shabbos residence above the pit in the surrounding Karmelis. And the Eruv is valid because our Mishnah reflects the opinion of Rabbi, who said, Kol dover shu mishvum shvus goes rolo ben hashmoshes. And any activity that is prohibited on the Shabbos by rabbinical law was not forbidden during the twilight period. Since it is not certain that the Shabbos has begun, since carrying from Rishus HaYochid to Karmelis is only rabbinically prohibited, the Eruv is accessible during twilight and is thus valid. If he placed the Eruv atop a reed or atop a pole, as long as the reed has been uprooted and then stuck into the ground, even if it is 100 amas high, areze Eruv. Our Mishnah implies that if the reed has been uprooted and then stuck into the ground, it is indeed a valid Eruv. But if the reed was not uprooted from the ground and then stuck back in, the Eruv would not be valid.
What's the difference there?
We'll see. Let's see what they say. It's weird.
Mani Rabboni Damwe, because I guess they want him to create it himself, not to use something that is that's been there all along. Mani Rabboni Damwe, whose opinion is this? It must be the opinion of the rabbis. What did they say? Kol davar shu mishum shvus. Any activity that is prohibited on the Shabbos by rabbinical law goes all of ben hashmoshes. That's what we discussed the other day. Was forbidden even during the twilight period. Hence, removing the Eruv from a reed attached to the ground is prohibited, even though it involves only a violation of rabbinical law. Rabbi, and this cannot be, for you said that the beginning of the Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi, who rules that rabbinically prohibited activities, as we mentioned yesterday, also the opinion of the Rambam, ruled that rabbinically prohibited activities may be performed at twilight. Reisha Rabbi v'Sefer Rabbanon. So it is possible the beginning of the Mishnah reflects the opinion of Rabbi, and the end reflects the opinion of the rabbis. Question mark, is it possible? Amar lei, Rabbi said to him, Kvar Romi Baracham Rav Chisda. Romi Bar Chasda already posed this question to Rav Chisda, V'shoni lo, and he answered him, Reisha Rabbi v'Sefer Rabbanon. The beginning of the Mishnah reflects the opinion of Rabbi, and the end reflects the opinion of the rabbis. Although highly unusual, such is the case of our Mishnah. Ravina Amar Kula Rabbi. Ravina disagreed, and he said the entire Mishnah reflects the view of Rabbi. V'Sefer Gezerah Shemaiktoim. Nevertheless, in the case at the end of the Mishnah, the Eruv is invalid because of a rabbinical decree. Since while removing the Eruv from the reed, he may break off a piece of the reed, thereby performing the malacha of koitzer, reaping. Hai pulmus adoso nardo, an army unit once came to Nardo. And caused overcrowding in the city. Okay? Puku avidu kavushe kavshi bagmo. Go out and make a place for us to assemble by pressing down benches of reeds in the marsh. Tomorrow on the Shabbos we will go and sit on them. So they're asking to prepare the grounds for them. The Mishnah taught that only when the reed was uprooted and then stuck into the ground, the Eruv atop is indeed valid. But if the reed was not uprooted and stuck back, then it's not a good Eruv, because it is not considered accessible.
If you break a reed that was...
Before Shabbos, obviously, and then putting it in, that makes the Eruv valid.
Is the issue you're going to break the reed if you try to get the food? Is that the...
That's the same issue of on a tree, on Shabbos.
But then what about a regular twig, even if it's not attached to the ground, you can't break it either, right?
With regular what?
Like a regular twig or a stick that's on the ground. I guess it's different because one's planted in the ground.
The one that's planted to the tree obviously would be a much greater violation. That would be biblical.
Okay.
I think if it's if the stick, if you break a stick and your intention is to destroy it, there's no one of the. I mean, to be liable for Shabbos, if you do something on Shabbos, it has to be meleches machsheves. So meaning something that has an outcome, that you plan on doing it, not somebody just broke something and he moved on. You wouldn't be liable. So in this case, it says it's not accessible, it's not considered accessible if it was not done before. Amar le'osam uzladin, Rav Nachman said to him there, in the case of the Mishnah, the reeds had already hardened, and so are considered trees. So they are therefore included in the rabbinical prohibition against using trees. However, the marsh reeds of Nardo were still soft, and so are regarded as vegetables. The rabbinical prohibition against using trees does not extend to vegetables. From where do you derive that we differentiate between hardened and unhardened reeds? Tanya, the reeds and the atad bushes and the higi bushes, different types of bushes. The latter are varieties of thorn bush. Miyad min ilan hein ve'einan kilaim b'cher, are species of trees and are therefore not kilaim when planted in a vineyard. It's not considered a prohibited mixture. V'tanya idoch was taught in a baisa konim v'kidon v'ubenin yorokin v'kilam b'cher. There's another place, another baita where it says that these species are considered vegetation, considered vegetable, and therefore they are. If you plant them in a vineyard, that would be a kilaim, putting vines with these vegetations. Kasha dade. So two biases contradict one another. Elashmamina. Kan buzradin, kan she'en buzradin. What's the difference? Baisa, it says it's not kilaim, dealt with something that is hardened. Here in the first baisa, where the reeds have already hardened, they are classified as trees. Therefore, not kilaim if you put them in the vineyard. Kan b'she'en buzradin, here in the second baita, where the reeds have not yet hardened, they are classified as vegetables. Shmamina learn from it, it is indeed proof. Kida min yorku, and a kida, keja, is species of vegetables. The second baisa asserted that it was. But it is taught in a Mishnah. We may not graft a rue plant onto white keja, because it is a case of grafting a vegetable onto a tree. The Mishnah obviously regards keja as a tree. Amar of Papa kida lechud v'kida levon lechud. Keja is classified separately as a vegetable, and white keja is classified separately as a tree. The Baisa was speaking of keja, while the Mishnah was discussing white keja, an altogether different species. The son of Migdal Od Mafteach, if he placed the Eruv in a closet, that's the case you said, Shmuel.
Yeah.
If he placed the Eruv in a closet,
Exactly. Oh, but not losing the key.
which he locked, and then lost the key, so the Eruv is not accessible. The Mishnah said it's still Eruv, Areza Eruv. If he does not know that the key is in its place, Eino Eruv. What does it mean he doesn't know that the key is in its place?
21.
Rashba infers from the language of Rabbi Elazar's ruling that the Eruv is invalid only if the key is actually lost. If, however, the key is in its place, only he forgot where he put it, Rabbi Elazar would concede that the Eruv is valid.
This is good for us seniors.
So when is the Eruv invalid? Only if the key is actually lost. However, the key is in its place, he forgot where he put it, you say with the seniors, Rabbi Elazar would concede that the Eruv is valid. Ritva explained that the halacha is lenient in the latter case because in all probability he will recall the key's location. Why is this Eruv valid? Why shouldn't it be valid? Because the Gemara says his Shabbos residence is in one place and his Eruv is in another place. It says in 22, even if both are located in Shus HaYochid, in private domains, so that no transfer between domains is involved, still the Eruv is inaccessible because it is locked away. However, Tosfos Ramai write that at this point, the Gemara thought that the closet was made of wood, since Rav and Shmuel later replied that it was constructed with bricks, and further closets discussed in the Mishnah were typically made of wood. What's the difference? If so, okay, we'll get to it because Tosfos is going into a discussion that the Gemara will come soon. It will say soon. It says, similarly, the Eruv should not be good because he's in one place and the Eruv is in another. So Rav and Shmuel both said, so that's what Tosfos was referring to. He says, we're not dealing with a wood closet, we're dealing with a brick closet. Closet made out of bricks. Meir, he the Omer, and Rabbi Meir, who said, that in the first place one may break through and take the produce. That not, if a house filled with produce was sealed before Yom Tov, so the food inside was not accessible at twilight. V'nifchat noitil mokim apchas, and on Yom Tov, the wall of the house was breached. One may take the produce from the place. Right? One may even, in the first place, one may even, in the first place, break through the wall and take the food. He doesn't have to wait for the wall to collapse. He can break through the wall because not even a rabbinical prohibition is involved.
So if there's a window, if I have a window here and the food is there, I can break the window to get the food on Shabbos. Okay.
That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir.
Okay.
The bricks of the house discussed in our Mishnah were not cemented together. Only because the wall of the house was so weakly constructed, Rabbi Meir permitted him to break through and take the produce. But if mortar were used in the construction, then the biblical prohibition against demolishing would apply. That's soiter al menas livnos. Remember, we said before, breaking is not a violation, but if it's breaking for the purpose of constructing, it becomes a violation because the breaking itself is done with thought. I'm going to knock down this wall and knock that wall. So the breaking itself is a constructing, part of the construction. Right? Demolition sometimes is a major part of the construction. So Achanam v'Avir Delivne, here too in our Mishnah, the bricks of the closet were not cemented together. And so according to Rabbi Meir, the closet may be breached in the first place in order to retrieve the Eruv. The Gemara again questions the appropriateness of applying Rabbi Meir's ruling in our Mishnah. Rabbi Meir permitted it only on Yom Tov, but not on the Shabbos. How then can we say that the Tana Kama of our Mishnah reflects the opinion of Rabbi Meir in as much as he makes no distinction between the Shabbos and Yom Tov? Achanami be Yom Tov. Here too our Mishnah refers to an Eruv made for Yom Tov. If so, that the Mishnah does not refer to an Eruv made for the Shabbos, that Braita, which taught about our Mishnah, is difficult to understand. For the Braita said, if he lost the key in the city, his Eruv is a valid Eruv. Since the key could be transported to the closet via rooftop, courtyards and carpifios, which is called the non-residential areas, and if he lost it in a field, his Eruv is not a valid Eruv. And if our Mishnah speaks only of Yom Tov, when carrying in the Reshus Rabim is permitted, Mali ve'ir, Mali v'so. What does it matter if the key was lost in the city or in a field? In any event, in either event, since the key may be transported to the closet, the Eruv should be valid. Why does Rabbi Eliezer rule otherwise? The Gemara answers, Chasur mechasr v'achiketani. The Bible were missing words, and this what it teaches. If you place the Eruv in a closet and locked it up, and then lost the key, this is a valid Eruv. Regarding what were these words said, that the Eruv is valid b'Yom Tov, only when the Eruv was prepared for Yom Tov. For then he may break into the closet, as Rabbi Meir said, and retrieve the Eruv. Meir said it about a house. Aval b'Shabbos any Eruv. But if the Eruv was prepared for the Shabbos, when the Muktzah prohibition against moving the bricks is not waived, his Eruv is not a valid Eruv. Nimtza mafteach be'ir, nimtza mafteach ben be'ir ben b'soda. If the key was found on Shabbos, whether in the city or in a field, and Eruvoi Eruv, his Eruv is not valid Eruv, because the key may not be carried to the closet. Abel said no. If the key was found on Shabbos in the city, his Eruv is a valid Eruv. If it was found in a field, his Eruv is not a valid Eruv. It says in number 3, even though the key was missing during twilight, when the Eruv takes effect, the Eruv is nevertheless considered accessible since the key will likely be found. Okay, we'll stop here.
So if you have a combination lock and you forget the combination,